We're live. Welcome, everybody. Must be Thursday.
I think it is Thursday.
It is Thursday.
Yeah.
It's Thursday, and the internet is calling. They're calling, saying, give me your pictures. We want to talk about them. I'm making sure. Oh, yeah, I see my head spinning around. It's all live on the other side.
Okay.
I'm closing that window. Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Look like a bobble.
Yeah.
Bobblehead.
All right. So we have another edition of the Night Crew Image Review. I'm going to kick it off tonight. I hope you guys are doing well. So we're going to start. There's Kathy. Welcome, Kathy. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And I go find the right one. It's desktop 3. And there we go. All right. So first we have an image from Dawn. Thank you for submitting this, Dawn. Let's take a peek. I think the first thing that jumps out at me is you missed the focus. And that's a crime. It's such a crime. It's a crying shame. But a lot of good things happen despite the focus being out. I think there's a beautiful idea of light painting here. I love how this object, it might be a bristle cone, is extending above the horizon. I think that was a really fantastic choice. I like seeing the mountain over here. I think that the shadows are amped a little bit, or something got amped up because we can see the noise in the grain here.
That's Crater Lake.
Crater Lake. I know where that is. I've been there.
Yeah, a little bit down there.
Huh. Okay. That's beautiful. Yeah. And where the sky meets the earth, I think if you were using a gradient, and we can check that out, it's sort of extended over into the earth a little bit there. And let's see what we got here. It is a DNG. I don't see a gradient. I don't see brush strokes. Was this edited in something else and then converted to a DNG?
No, I edited that in Lightroom a couple days
Okay.
ago.
All right. So
And
let's see.
There is gradient in there and brush and...
Okay. Well, I don't see the trimmings. I don't see it there. That's interesting. So I think on the edit, the next time you're working on that gradient, when you pop it open, and I'll pull another one just to show you, you might want to work on brushing in or brushing out and deciding what you want to have in there. So we could see that the gradient comes over a little bit there. Look at me. I even grabbed the wrong thing. When you're in here, you can turn on the range mask, right? But up here, you can also say brush. If I simply didn't want to include the mountains, I can hit the space bar, zoom in a little bit. I'm holding down the option key. I forget what it is on Windows. Are you Mac or PC?
It's PC.
PC. What is that, Tim? What's that modifier key? Is it control? There's an option. So what I'm doing is just brushing out the part of the mask that shouldn't affect the mountains, and so on and so forth. And that way, when you turn off the mask overlay, it's only going to affect the areas that are the sky when you're doing those adjustments. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry about that, Matt. I was muted. It's the Alt key.
Alt key.
Alt and Option.
Right. So if you hold down Alt, you see how the cursor changes from a plus sign in the middle to a minus. The minus is subtracting from the mask. So like that.
Unfortunately, we're only seeing the cursor. That's the one problem with Zoom. Sometimes it ignores the brush. Now we're seeing the brush.
Okay. Cool. All right. So that's a good way to work on your gradients. Did I just put a gradient in there and made it even darker? Is it possible? It is possible. Okay. Well, my gosh, I want to go back to Crater Lake with you. This is such beautiful skies there. Gabe and I were there once and had a great time. That was some years ago now, though.
Maybe it'll open again.
Everything's going to open up again. everything. It's just a matter of time, right? This is great. I would probably, I'm just cranking the shadows to see what happened. I could see where some brushing happened over there. And I think that that's what brought the shadows into an area of looking a little bit too amped, a little bit too grainy. There's the brush strokes. They were hiding from me. There we go. So if we see shadows are not down, the contrast is down. Aha. And dehaze down. Oh, that was an interesting choice. Can you tell me why you chose to bring the dehaze down?
Just playing around, experimenting.
Gotcha. Okay. I do that all the time.
I chose this picture and tried some stuff that I've been learning here.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Let's see if we yeah, there's still a lot of high ISO noise there. And I understand we've all got to work with what's in our library now. And that's an asset, right? So I get it. So this one, you brought the exposure down. It was too bright. Oh, interesting. All right. And over here, this one, you brought the exposure up. Okay. And this one. Okay. So now I'm starting to see what happened here. Okay. All in all, I think that you were there at the right time and you had a lot of the right ideas. If you were to shoot it again, you would shoot it for probably just for the stars. If you were far enough away, this was a 16 millimeter. So I think you would have sharpness from infinity to this foreground here. If not, you might want to go choose your depth of field a little bit more carefully. Yeah. And then
I was actually shooting the stars and I thought I had it on bulb and I accidentally got it on 30 seconds. I know that.
Oh. That's, you know what? I can't tell you how many times I've done that. I said, why didn't that go for a minute? Oh, I forgot to switch it to bulb.
Yeah.
I'm with you, man.
Yep.
I feel you. Yeah. So I think this is a good one to practice on. It's not going to, I think I'd pick another one that has better sharpness to practice editing. And you'll probably learn a little bit more from it because you'll have details that should render in a way that will help you learn better. So that would be my recommendation for the next one that you want to work on. I do love a lot of the things about this, especially your choice of just this one stripe of light painting, causing that stump to rise up and jump out. I think that's gorgeous. So great.
It was fun.
Yeah. Always a fun place to visit too. Tim?
Yeah, and Matt, thank you. I'm going to suggest that if you can, in the background, if you could turn off everybody's video. I think that's what that does is opens up well, actually, we're fine, I think, because we're recording off my screen. So you don't see anybody's video on my screen right now, right, Matt?
No.
Okay.
When you're sharing your screen, you only see the person speaking.
Okay, perfect. So great. Let's see who's up next. So this is Christina Actual.
Oh.
Right. And let's go into our develop module and see what we've got here, Christina. Okay, cool. Did you shoot this recently?
Yes, last Friday night.
Yay, good for you, getting out and doing it. And during
and then the clouds came in at 1 a.m. and we've had clouds ever since.
Oh, bloody well, cool. You got it right at the right time then. So let's see what we've got for, let's see, we're not seeing any information in here as far as f-stops or shutter speeds or anything. So
I can tell you it was 115 shots at 45 seconds.
Awesome.
At 20 millimeters on my full frame and f2.8.
Okay, cool. Well, that initial or that base exposure of 45 seconds, I think really worked out well because the sky in the background is not blown out. The building here, the house lights are not blown out. And so I think you did some really good calculations with your initial base exposure and then just expanded that into a into a star trail. So kudos, great job on that. Looks like everything is just tack sharp, which is beautiful and nice. And I'd like your composition too. I would say, Christina, the only thing I would do is probably remove this area right here and watch what happens, because our house is so solid against this lower edge. I almost want to see a more solid edge over here, so I'm not tempted to go out. Remember, our eyes follow high contrast. So we know we're looking at the stars, but then we eventually do this, and then we leave the frame as your eye is following the contrast of the red around the trees, and we leave the frame right here. So if we were to go in and even keep the original, you can even keep the original if you want. Whoops, I'm sorry. Let's do that. And just pull that a little bit closer. Let's do it this way so we can actually see what we're doing. Yeah, even in there, once that gap is removed, I think you can see that the whole image just feels a little bit cleaner, and we're not leaving the frame in that way. And so, you know, if you want to see the before and after, we're going here, and you can see how this section draws your eye, and then boom, it's gone, and we're just right in here, nice and tight, and without any distractions. So that would be my primary suggestion here. Other than that, I think it looks really quite nice. I might consider going in and cleaning up these.
The star trails in the window.
Yeah, you know what they are, but really they're just a distraction.
Okay.
Because
but I thought it was really cool just to.
You know, I think if it was across all the windows here, then that would be really cool. But just the touch of it is kind of like, well, what is that? Why is it there? And why is it distracting? Again, because if you look at the overall image, this is one place that our eyes move to very quickly because it's so bright. And let me just do a real super hack job of taking those out. And let's just make it big and strong. We'll just get her done in one shot here. Yeah, that's not so good. We'll just grab some of that and see what that looks like. Oh, that is actually really, really lousy. I'm just going to let you guys use your imagination. But I think removing them will make the image a little bit stronger, Christine.
Okay.
Yep. And then the last thing, and this is just a thing you could do if you want to, is you can, remove this. Ooh, that's not even a plane trail, is it, Matt? What is that?
I'm looking. It looks, my gosh, it looks like some sort of satellite.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have color. Yeah, it's so long. I think it's a satellite.
It's got to be, right? So, if you wanted to, you could go in and remove that.
Okay, so that's a question I had.
Okay, excellent.
I've seen you guys do this by clicking and then clicking on the other end, and every time I try, it doesn't work for me.
And tell me what happens. Where's the failure? What does it look like?
Nothing happens.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's go through the whole process. So what I'll do is I'm going to grab my my clone stamp here, or my, what do they even call it? I'm sorry, I'm using Photoshop terms, spot removal tool. And I'm going to put it onto heal. And then, are you able to see my cursor or my brush, or does it look like a cursor?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I would make mine about that big and put the feather somewhere around 60-ish. And what we're going to do is, quite literally, you could just click and drag a line if you wanted to. And that did not work so well.
I know how to do that, but that goes all crazy.
Right. The other way you can do it is click once, then go down to the bottom of the line and hit shift click. And that is not as, that's not so bad. Whoops, let's move it.
And is that a left shift or a right shift?
It doesn't actually matter. It doesn't actually matter. So you can also play with the feather after the fact. And you're right, it's not doing that good of a job. So I can see right up in here where it has shifted. Can you see that when I pull it away? There's that shift in the yellow. The rest of it might not be so obvious, But in this case, I think it is rather obvious. So there's a couple of things you can do. If you want to do it manually, you could take smaller portions. And this is what I often do. I very rarely find that I can, here, let me go back. Let's go to 1 to 2 here. I very rarely find that I can click up here and then shift click down here and have the whole, bloody hell, and shift click down here and have the whole thing work. As a matter of fact, it's not working at all. Let's start that again. Click up here and then shift click down in the bottom. I rarely find that that works, and we can see all kinds of all kinds of issues here, up in here, here. The blue one looks good, the white one looks good, but there's some there's some missing stuff. So instead of doing that, what I'll often do, and this a lot of times, Christine, it's just a little bit of manual work. It really is, but I'll take small sections at a time. So I'll click here and then shift click there. And that's arguably not so bad. And you can move these up and down to adjust it just a little bit, remembering that your arrow keys also work well. So if you don't feel like you want to grab that and move it up and down, you could just use your arrow keys, and that's pretty good. Now, the next thing is you go to another section and click, and then click, and see how that fares. And again, moving your arrow keys up and down can perhaps get you a better blend, and that is not a better blend. So yeah, it's tricky. You know, in this case, maybe I bit off more than I could chew. So I would delete that and say, hey, you can't go that far on this one. So maybe it's from here to here. And then again, move it up and down a little bit. Okay. So it's not great, but you could do it. So the options are, I'll just leave that in there. I actually do most of that in Photoshop because in Photoshop, what you can do is when you're actually picking up something and dropping it down, you can spin it and you can line the lines up exactly with the ones that you're matching. You can't do that in Lightroom. So if it's real critical, I go into Photoshop. The other option is just to leave it.
Yeah.
We all know satellites go through and planes go through, and you have to ask yourself, does it really bother you that much to put in all that extra work? You know, and sometimes it's just not worth it. So I've got no problem with that. You know, I think that's up to you. It's up to an individual. Matt, do you agree with me on that?
I do, absolutely. And in the chat, both here and in YouTube, I posted a link to a blog post, 4 ways to remove airplanes from star trails.
Sweet.
So if you want to take the deep dive into the deepest dive I've ever taken on explaining how to do this, enjoy.
Okay.
Enjoy. Yeah, it was good. Thank you. Linnell, I'm asking if you want to unmute. Your image is up next. So this will disappear shortly, but this is what the blog post looks like. So yeah, there's a lot of details in there. Have fun. I had fun writing that. All right, so here we are. Wow. Okay. So Linnell?
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Did I pronounce your name correctly?
You did.
Fantastic.
That's very rare. Most people don't.
Nice to hear from you, Linnell.
Hi, Tim. It's good to see you.
What can I say? I was hooked on phonics when I was a kid. All right. So I looked it up. You're using an EOS 77D, and
Yes.
you shot it at 25,600.
Yes.
And I think that's a really high ISO for that crop sensor camera. Just from a qualitative point of view, because there is a lot of noise here. So
I agree. And
Okay.
this is a new camera, and I basically don't know what I'm doing. But if I kept pushing the ISO because I was getting nothing.
I get it. I totally get it. And that's exactly what you should be doing. Yep. You need to find a couple of things out. When do I start getting an image? And when does my camera stop doing the things that I want it to do? Well, like you got to find the outer edges of what's possible. So you did was this a moonless night?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was Tuesday night.
Okay.
Nights
So
ago.
right near the new moon. Got it. So I would expect something like that with the where do you live?
Well, I live
What
in
state?
Fort Worth.
Fort Worth. Okay.
But this was shot way out in West Texas near Lubbock.
Okay. Nice dark skies out there, huh?
Yes.
Little bit of light pollution on the horizon, but it's probably not a lot because you're at 25,600. Okay. So here's something else. You shot it at f9. So there's a bunch of things on our blog that you might want to look at about approaching, starting what to do to get star points. And your lens is a 4.5 to 5.6. I would say shoot it your lens as wide open as you can, either 4.5 at its widest or 5.6 if you're zoomed in. I guess it's at 10 to 18 millimeter. You're at 17 millimeters. So you would have been shooting at 5.6. You would see a lot more light and you wouldn't have to bring the ISO up so high.
Oh, okay.
So try opening up your lens. You did okay with the focusing. I think it's just slightly off, but I'm not familiar with your lens. Your lens seems to have, you see how you have these little triangular shapes? You're either slightly out of focus or you have a little bit of coma. And I'm not sure which it is. Coma meaning it's just a lens aberration, something that a lens does, because lens designers have to choose between this and that when they're building a formula. So did you light up the silo yourself?
I did.
Nice. Good choice. Otherwise, it would have been a big black shape in the middle of the frame.
Yes, I've got a few of those too.
Nice.
This was shot starting at 11 o'clock. There was a light show that you just wouldn't believe. I got some shots of it that were just amazing. So by 2:30, all of the clouds had gone away. So I got twice the nice.
Fantastic. Well, I think that you're doing a great job learning about your camera. And it's good to get out there and shoot. And it's good that you have the space in the dark place to work on that. Did you light this from behind your camera, or which direction were you facing? Or relative to your camera, where were you standing?
The light was behind my head. It was a way too much light, but I noticed accidentally that one time when I had the strong part of the light pointed the opposite direction, there was actually light on the silo, and that's what I used.
Clever. That's good. That's good. Obviously, you're teaching yourself to see, and that's good. Not just saying the light has to face in a certain direction. Reflected light works just as well as direct light, and that's a great observation. Fantastic. I think it's wonderful that you got what looks like the galactic core in here of the Milky Way. I think it's wonderful that you lit your subject. Your focus is near perfect. I would say next shot that you do, open up, go as wide as you can, and try to go down a stop or two. Try to get it back into the 6400 range, and then try your 30 seconds there and see what happens. Yeah.
Okay. I do have a question.
Yes.
You notice there's nothing wrong with the horizon that I can see, but the silo is actually tilted when in fact it is perfectly straight. I don't know how that happened.
I do. This is a wide angle lens, and when your camera with a wide angle lens is dead level, everything is going to be perpendicular. with most wide angle lenses. Some of them will bend stuff at the corners, but if it's in the center, it's like that. But the moment you tilt back, it causes this effect called keystoning, where parallel lines converge. And that's what's starting to happen here, is because you had to tilt your camera back a little bit to get the top of the silo in. Am I correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So that's what will happen in transform. So if you want to fix that, we can try and do that here. In the transform panel, we can try and just do the vertical setting and then see where it crops in. Boop. And that's more like it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's perfect.
It's close. I mean, we might rotate it a little bit, like.
Well, I meant live. It's perfect.
That's the lesson. That's why people put money into those expensive PC or perspective control lenses, because then they can take the lens and shift it up. Instead of turning the camera back, they shift the lens up and it sort of sends the image down to a different place. So yeah, this is good. This is good. I might do a couple of other quick things on this. Like, it's a little bit green, so I might like try to combat that green by pulling the tint towards red. And you see how the colors just get a little bit more natural when I do that?
Yeah.
And I think the color temperature is pretty perfect. 3850 or 3800 is usually what I do for the Milky Way, but it seems to be more neutral at 3700 Kelvin. Very nice. The rest of this, I don't think there's really much to do with it. I think we had a pretty constructive conversation about this. You feeling good?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, looking forward to the next image.
Well, I'm going back every new moon until I get what I want.
Awesome.
All right.
That's great.
Thank
All right, Tim,
you.
back to you.
All right. Linnell, I also in the chat window put a link to the first part of an article that will help you with exposure times for night photography. So check out that blog post. I think it was written by Lance.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, who do we have up here next? We have got Giles. Is that Giles or Gillis? What is that? All right. So this is beautiful. This is really, really nice. I'm loving the location of the Milky Way. The core is just kind of coming right down into this rock, and we're getting this really nice kind of fishhook effect, which I think is a lovely composition. And the fact that we're seeing some extra little light painting in here, I think that's great. It really adds, adding the human form sometimes can really give us a sense of perspective to the image. And so I think that's great. Boy, I don't think I would change anything about the composition. I like the crop. You can see where we're cropped here. I think that looks lovely. And yeah, I wouldn't change anything about that. So let's look at some of the technical details here. Stars are nice and sharp. As a matter of fact, I think they're actually, this image is over sharpened. So let's see if this is a DNG or not. What do we have here? It's a JPEG. So unfortunately, I can't go in and change that. But this is what I would call just a little bit too crispy, over sharpened. The edge of the rocks here looks a little bit over sharpened, but when we get into here, it looks really super crisp. And I think that's something, excuse me, that we need to avoid, simply because it actually draws attention away. Now, if we're just putting, images up small, like on Instagram or something, that's one thing. But ultimately what we want to do is we really want to try to make the best image we can in general. So a lot of times making smaller images, we can hide all of these little problems that we're having with our images. So looking at Instagram and other places like that is not the best way to judge the quality of an image. But I would say pull back on, I'm thinking it's sharpening, although of course it could be too much clarity. It could be too much texture. All of those controls are very, very close together in what they do. And so I can't really say, yes, it's over sharpened, but it's one of those texture controls that's dealing with it. But like I said, the composition is so beautiful. I can't wait for you to go back and just pull some of that sharpness out. So it's not, as I call it, just overly crispy. Now, the other thing too, is that it looks like there was some work done on the Milky Way individually. And I appreciate that because it really brings out the Milky Way, but it also gives it a little bit of a fake effect. So the brightness here in the sky is pretty much the same brightness as here in the sky on a Milky Way. So anytime we see this lighter halo like this going outside the Milky Way, we know it's fake, and it's just a little bit too pumped up. So I would say back off just for my taste. Let me clarify. For my taste, I know that that's false. And so I tend to pull it back a little bit. Now, other people that are shooting Milky Ways will go out and crank these things out with complete disregard whether it looks fake or not. And that is a creative choice, and one that's certainly fine to make. But I think the way that I produce, or the way that I process my Milky Ways, is somewhere in between reality and a little bit of falsehood, because if you just shoot it like it comes out of the camera, it is not nearly as interesting as we want it to be. And then some people go way, way overboard. I try to land somewhere in the middle. This is just a touch on the overboard side for me, but not nearly as bad as some of the stuff that's over the top. And the things that you've actually done to the Milky Way, I think, are really good. So I would say just back off just a touch. So I guess in conclusion, really everything is great. We just need to back off on some of the processing that you've done. And you've got a great composition and clearly an ability to find and technically pull these things off. So let's see some more of that. Back to you, Master Matt.
I'm on it. All right. Harris is not in the room, correct?
I don't think so.
All right, Harris, if you're watching on YouTube, hello. Thank you for submitting. Okay, so let's jump in. This is a beautiful composition. This is the first thing I would notice, and the first thing I always look at is, are the stars sharp? It looks like you missed by a tiny little bit. Just a tiny little bit. I mean, these look a little bit, but it's just a little bit off. When I'm in here looking for sharpness, I'm also noticing that there's some other things that we could take care of that'll make this sparkle. Since this is a JPEG, I can't just turn on the lens corrections. So I'm going to switch over to manual under the lens corrections panel and go to defringe. And these are purple, right? So I'm going to pull the purple defringe, and look at that. They start to go away, right? So I'm just going to zoom out to show you what that does. It stops your eyes from being drawn to what should be white stars as purple stars. And I'm just going to defringe those. That's my first thing I want to look at. Second thing is the Milky Way looks a little bit dingy. Like I prefer to see the Milky Way be neutral, and this is not neutral. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to look at the color temperature, and I'm going to pull it until it's a little bit neutral. Now it goes from slightly yellow, and that to me just looks a little cleaner. Now people might disagree with me, but what I'm looking for is gentle reds in the core. And that's fine, right? And there might be a little bit too much red in this, so I'm going to pull it towards green a tiny bit, and then it just sort of pops right into neutral. Look at that. We go from where it was to this, and now we're already cooking, right? So the next thing I would do is say, there is no true blacks here. There's a little bit of mud. So I'm going to pull these blacks down and pin them. I'm going to crush those blacks, but then I want to bring the shadows up to increase that contrast. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the brightest part of the picture. I'm going to bring the whites up and bring the highlights down a little bit. And see, bringing the highlights up might be a good play. So I'm going to switch and go back the other way with the whites. So now we started here and we ended up here. Now this might look a little bit better if I had a DNG instead of a JPEG. And what I'm going to do, the last thing I'm going to do just for this, because I love saying Lancify, I'm going to Lancify this by putting a little crop on there. Down, down, up. And then I sort of play with it. So just a little bit of that. So we went from this to that, and the focus is in the center. And I really think that's fantastic. In the meantime, I kind of want it to be a little bit more square. Just a little bit more square. Is it a little bit leveler? Yeah.
Is that a word?
Leveler. I am a leveler. It's a verb. So you are beleveled, Harris. Yeah. And I think that just takes it into a place of a little bit sparkly. And there's other finishing touches you might consider, like just a tiny bit of dehaze. But I know you've already worked on this image a little bit, right? But what I'm really looking for is a little bit more, if possible, a little bit more texture in the bottom. I just want this stone to look a little bit more like stone. So I'm going to do that. And I would normally put a range mask on this or brush that in, which I think I will, just to dirty it in. But we'll just dirty that in. All I want to do is make the stone a little bit more crispy. And hey, I'm liking my new mouse. My new mouse is pretty good. All right. Boom. And that is that. I said I'd like my new mouse. There we go. Start to finish. Start to finish. Cool. Thanks for submitting, Harris.
Cool.
Yeah. And now, Tim, if you hit screen share, you can just yoink it from me.
Okay. It's yoinked.
Nice.
All right. Let me just get rid of this little thing here. Okay. And who do we have here? Is that Yosemite? Nice. All right, Julianne. Cool. Is Julianne in with us? She's not, so she's probably watching live. Okay. Wow. Well, there's a lot of cool things going on here. First of all, we've got a really heavy color contrast between the blue of the sky and the more neutral tones down in here, which can be beneficial. And I'll explain how and why it can be or not be in a second. We also have this little tree here, which is also really nice. It gives us a different, shall I say, it lends a sense of what lens we're using and a sense of space to this, because it's going up a little bit higher than Half Dome itself. It tends to feel a little bit big. But that could be your purpose. And then the other thing we've got this rock formation coming out. So Julianne, my thought on this is that we've got just a little bit too much included. If we look at our spaces within the frame itself, this amount of rock is almost equal to this amount of sky, which is almost equal to this amount of sky. Well, clearly this is a little bit bigger, but we'll call these two spaces almost the same size. And so what I would do is I would tend to crop this into more of like a 4x5 or a 5x7, so that we're minimizing the amount of rock. When we see the finishing of this round circle or this shadow, our eye wants to go to it. The moment that we crop that out and we say, hey, listen, it's just going to end here, we're not so curious about following the circle around its edge. So now we come in just a little bit tighter, say on the right-hand side here. And now we're really feeling like we're about ready to leap off this rock and into the sea of clouds, as opposed to being held down in. And let me just take this back again. Instead of being held down in here into the foreground, what we're actually doing is pushing the viewer past the foreground and into this. So we're minimizing this and maximizing that. And I think that would be, the way to go. Now, one of the other compositional things, Julianne, that I would do is to take this tree and put it over here, by simply moving a spotter, maybe 2 steps to your left with your tripod. We want a little bit more separation between El Cap and the tree itself. And I think that'll make the overall view a little bit less confusing and a little bit more clean. And then everything else seems to be right on the mark. Looks like your stars are sharp. We've got a 20-second exposure at an 18mm lens. Yeah, boy, I think that's right on. The only thing you might want to do would be to maybe run a gradient down here and darken the sky down just a little bit. So let me double click effect. And yeah, 15 other photographers out there, Julianne. I totally get it. Yeah, it's hard to move around, but in the perfect world, that's where you would go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is subtly darken the highlights to this image, which is going to hopefully darken down this part of the sky. Don't mind there being a gradient in the sky, but I think making it a little bit darker will make it feel more like night. So notice by just pulling down the highlights, I've darkened down this area without so much affecting the darker sky up here, which is already significantly dark. Now let's just look at the before and after of that gradient. And we're seeing a little bit of these dark edges. That could be some vignetting. And is this a DNG? It is. So let's see if we can go down to our lens corrections and fix this. So, okay, so it's got all that stuff in there. So what we might be able to do is take the vignetting and push it even further. And that helped a little bit. But in another rendition of this photograph, I might try to even out that blue sky a little bit, so it wasn't quite so dark here, and then going to light. So the gradation seems to be pretty tight. So what I might do is just take a brush instead and try to lighten up the shadows. And then, nope, that's not the brush at all, is it? There we go. And kind of lighten up the shadows and see if we can get some brightening there. She tried to Lancify. Yeah, I think what you did there, Julianne, is just, I think you just went a little bit too far. What she means is that she said she was trying to actually add in some vignette. And so let's go down to the effects and we can see that there may be some vignetting. Yeah, so what you're going to want to do is just make that not quite so severe. So if we put this back to 0, we can see a better gradient here and it's not so dark. And you were down in here, you were down much darker. So what we'll do is you can always take that midpoint and move it in. And the way I like to do this is just darken it down straight away and then take the feather completely out of it. So you realize what you're actually affecting. Then what you can do is drag your midpoint down in. Now you know where the gradient is going to go through. So with 100% feather, that gradient becomes very soft and subtle. Leave the midpoint where it is, put the amount back to 0, and then just subtly bring that down. And hopefully that'll be a little bit less. So overall, very nice job, Julianne. Just try to leave some more space in that tree and a little bit less foreground to get us out into the distance quicker. All right, Matt.
All right.
Whoa.
Jerry. Hey, can you unmute Jerry for me? I don't have the peoples here.
Sure.
Oh, there we go. Ask to unmute. Jerry, this is really interesting, man. I want to know, were drugs involved? Okay, you don't have to answer that. Please don't. Wow.
Silent, Jerry.
Wow.
All right.
There he is. Wow. Wow. This was an interesting experiment. Tell me, was this something that you intended or stumbled upon?
Well, Matt, you know, this is halfway up Rock Cut.
Mm.
And I was out there trying to warm up or cool down for, you know, your workshop. And, you know, I was out there and all this stuff started raining down, and I'm going like, I don't know what it is, but it looks interesting.
I think you're pulling my leg. I did. Wow. I love the story, and I'm just going to go with it. I like this. Halfway up Rock Cut. You know what's really funny, Jerry? And I'm just going to stop screen sharing for a second. I'm wearing this shirt tonight. I didn't even know it. Look at that. All right. So back to screen sharing. So that was good times, man. Good times. So wow. I like your choice of cropping. This is a really strong trail right here. And this is competing with that. I'm going to do something crazy. I like that one. But at the same time, I think it's really competing with what you've done here.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And I might even like get away from that one there too, just to draw the attention right down to this on thirds. And then you have this interestingness that's going on here. That's just surreal. It's extraordinary. I want to see more of this detail too. So I'm going to play with the highlights a little here. Actually, I don't know which one I want to play with. I'm going to start with just the whites because I like that there's so little of the landscape going on here. And I wonder if, I don't think there's much benefit to playing with the shadows there. Really, what a clever idea. I don't know if I want to do anything else whatsoever, but that it feels fun and mysterious and like there's an abduction going on or a landing, and it's probably most likely a landing. Yeah. Wow. So now, all seriousness, your camera was tilted up and you snapped it down, or you started, it's more likely you started down and then snapped it upwards, right? Or downwards.
I was hiking up and I'd stopped for a minute.
Uh-huh.
And then this happened and I said, oh.
You're serious? Things started flying down out of the air?
Yeah. I mean, I have the shot without things falling down, but it wasn't anywhere as near as interesting as this.
Okay.
So what were the things, Jerry, that were falling?
I don't believe you.
Jerry, what's going on here, man?
Jerry, it's not April 1st. This is cool. You know what? One of them goes all the way, so whatever. I'm going with it, man. Put this on the wall. It's great. It's so fun. I might say it's so out of this world that I would beef up the color. You know, I would do something to beef up the color on this one. Like,
okay.
Just because I'd leave the landscape pretty neutral, but do something to beef up that color. Like maybe neutralize in the Milky Way here like that.
Uh-huh.
And bring up your vibrance or something like that. Cause it's like, that's kind of cool. Yeah. Cause I don't want the landscape to have any color whatsoever, but I want everything else to have some color there. That's just fascinating. I haven't been surprised, and I haven't been surprised by an image in a while. This one surprises me in a really good way. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you wanted to explore in looking at this image, Jerry?
No, actually, you know, in a way I was going like, so since I wasn't certain what was coming down, do you guys have any theories?
You know what? Until this very moment, I didn't actually believe you were serious. That
Neither
there was
did
stuff
I.
going down.
No, I'm serious about this one.
Oh my goodness. Did you
I,
walk up to these people and ask them if they're okay? Because that looks
well,
like a person there.
yeah, I mean, and this was with a workshop, in August.
Yeah.
And, most of the focus of the workshop was shooting at Lake Irene, but they tacked this on. And I said, okay. And, I think this is the first time that, the guy, one of the instructors is the one that's up there by rock cut itself.
Okay.
But I'm still not certain what happened.
Darned, I have no idea. The only thing I can think of is that somebody in the area was throwing something up into the skies, but that doesn't even make sense.
They would have a really good arm.
They'd have to be behind you or something. Yeah.
Look at this. This goes all the way up off of there.
What the heck?
Something beautiful. I think this is an image that we should get to Tyler and ask him.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Jerry, do we have your permission to pass this on to Tyler Norgren and ask him?
Sure.
Great, because I am so curious now.
So let me just to clarify, Jerry, did you see this stuff with your eye, or it appeared after you took the shot?
I saw it with my eye.
Wow.
Okay,
because that doesn't even look like meteors.
I swear to God, I thought that this was a tripod head movement. That's amazing.
Wow.
But now it makes sense because one of these goes all the way through and this one stops there. Like, okay. Otherwise, all of the stars would do that. Now it's making sense.
Huh.
I'm going to be thinking about this all night. So I got to move on.
I'm taking control, Matt. I'm taking this
turn. Mind blown. Thank you for sharing that, Jerry.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, and who do we have here? All right, Kathy.
Hey, Tim.
Is this at your house?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so what I'm seeing, the things that I really like is the light through the fog on the tree here, the light through the fog here, and kind of a misty feeling here. The depth of the color of the sky is right on. And so I want my eye to spend more time kind of going back and forth between here and here. I'm just playing with some crops here. So I think the real important question is what is the most important thing about the photograph to you? What about it did you like most? What do you want to elevate?
So this is what was happening when I came home from teaching one night.
Mm-hmm.
And it was totally about the lights coming through the fog.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a darker exposure than this one, but I wasn't sure.
Okay. So light coming through the fog, that's all we need to know. That is your bone. That is your subject, right? So let's look at the areas where we don't get that feeling. See, back in here, we get the feeling of fog, even here a little bit, certainly here, but it starts to fall off by the things that are closer to us.
Right.
So as we come in and say, really, here is the heart of the photograph with all the fog coming in, but it looks a little funny with this cropped off here. And as we bring this in, the grass is closer to us, so we're not getting the fog effect. The more we take that out, the more we're looking into the distance, we're getting more of the fog effect, right? And then we're like, well, we can't just leave that, or can we? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, to me, that is where really all of the interest is in the photograph. And when we start including more and more of the building, we're showing more of things that are not bringing the fog to its maximum density. It's like, oh yeah, there's really no fog here at all. So I'm just wondering how we could go in and, what we could include and not include to Yeah, maybe even something like that. Because to me, that brings everything that you need about the image. It's all that distant fog. That's really, you know, really the heart of the matter. And then to take that a step further, even if you don't like that crop, you can bring it back a little bit to somewhere in here. But I'd still suggest keeping this portion to a minimum because that's what's intruding on the fog. And then remember, you can always start to do things like to help bump out that fog is lower your dehaze. And of course, that starts to make the image a little bit brighter, but then you can minus that a little bit. But suddenly it's a lot more foggy, right?
Right.
As you add more dehaze in. And then what you can do if you wanted to see certain areas sharper, then what you could do is go in with a local adjustment brush and add some of that dehaze back in. So if you wanted to say, you know, have that be less dehazy on the tree here. Whoops, that's too much added dehaze. But you can see my point. I added in like 13 points there. And now we've added more fog overall to the image. We've limited the composition to just where the fog is really happening, and then bumped up the fog by actually doing minus on the dehaze.
Didn't think of that.
Yeah, something a little crazy. You remember John Paul's lecture about how he would create that, you know, that fog in his images in Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just my thought on how you could replicate that in Lightroom. So yeah,
Cool.
yeah. And then I would remove that too.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but this is interesting to me. You're kind of really disturbing the edge here, you know? So I like it. Cool.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, you bet. All right, Matt, back to you, buddy.
Here I am. We're going to ask Sue.
I'm here.
Yay. Hey, Sue, this is cool.
I was excited.
How many tries did it take to get this?
It was one of these quick things, run outside because the storm was coming in, and I just set the camera up and started shooting. I had to do quite a bit of a crop because I had the wide angle and I didn't want to lose the opportunity. So I just opened up my camera, waited till lightning came. As soon as it was done, I shut it down and opened it back up.
That's my favorite way to shoot lightning, is with the bulb on the intervalometer. Just press and hold until it flashes, then let go, and press and hold until it flashes. Good work.
Yep, that's what I did.
This is a beautiful series of understrikes. And then I think this part really makes the whole picture right there. I think like this is beautiful, but this little piece creeping up above, oh, so delicious. So delicious. I want to try something. I really like this color. It does feel electric. It does feel blue, but I'm wondering how color temperature will affect our perception of this. So I'm going to go more towards blue just to see what happens. And that's just like, I'm starting to feel like we're in Mordor. Yeah, right. And then that's too much, obviously, but it's still interesting, right?
Yes.
It's okay, right? And then neutral is also pretty interesting, right? Look at that. It's almost neutral, right? That's fascinating. 3780. I didn't know the color temperature of lightning was 3780. Oh, we can find out. Let's pick something to neutralize on. Boom. There's neutral. 4400 with a minus 43 tint. Wow. Now it looks like a black and white. I don't like that. I'm just curious, right? I like playing with curious. And then watch this. Wow.
Yeah. That's cool.
There's something really cool about that.
Hey, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever tried split toning something like that?
Oh my goodness.
Yes. While you're playing, I just thought I'd throw that into the mix.
You're going to make me do it, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, if you don't, I'll jump in.
Why don't you work on a split tone in the background? You split tone the one on your side, and I'm going to finish up on this. This is fantastic. I really liked your choice of the 4x5 too. I'm just curious about what a square would look like, because you have that. I know that we're really limiting it, but Yeah, you know what? Okay. I dig it. I dig it. So I feel like since this is a summer thing, I feel like it should feel more like a summer storm. So
Uh-huh.
I like bringing it more towards the warm there. And if that's too red, right, just pull the green
Uh-huh.
down a little bit. And that's, yeah, just a little bit shy. I like how that feels. What a lucky strike, pun intended.
I was lucky.
Yeah, and great choice on the crop too. Coming in between those two trees was clutch.
Mhm.
And then bisecting this tree over here. Those are good choices. Now, I think since Tim is so eager to show the split toning, which is something I rarely do, I would love to learn. I'm going to sit under his learning tree for a second. Tim, why don't you share your screen and show us?
Sure. Okay. And as always, no guarantee this will work, but what I was seeing in here on this image was that, you've got a lot of shadow and highlight, and it's really all the same exact color. And so when Matt started playing with the colors, I started thinking, hey, what about split toning? Where what you can do is go into the highlights. And the way that I like to split tone is increase my saturation a lot so I can see the color that I'm choosing, and then decide which color I want. And I think Matt chose sort of a yellowish red somewhere in there. And then for the shadows, what you could do is the same thing, crank up the shadows and then choose a color, and let's make the shadows more bluish. Okay. Now, that's obviously really garish, but you're throwing this warm tone across the highlights and the blue across the shadows. Now, at this point, I only cranked up the saturation just so I could choose my colors. But if you pull your saturations back down on each and then slowly add in just a little bit, you can get a very gentle differential between the highlight colors and the shadow colors. Something like that, right? Pretty neat, huh?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be over the top, right. But if we look at this before and after, there's before, there's after. See how subtle that is?
Yes.
And of course, you can push that by adding in the saturation. If you wanted to add more saturation, then it becomes, clearly less subtle. But somewhere in there, I think really helps break apart the highlights and the shadows of the image. So something to play with.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Nice capture, Sue.
Thank you. I was happy.
Okay, so let's see what we've got here. This is Harris again, and the old pointing the beam up at the sky, which we tend to love quite a bit. Harris, on this one, I think there's a couple things that I would like to correct, and then there's a couple things I'd like to comment that I think are really nice. I love the fact that the silhouette is nearly completely above the background silhouette there, so we really get the idea of it's a person. The beam is very distinct from the rest of the sky, which is cool, and kind of pointing in it, at this very noticeable constellation or part of the Milky Way, whatever that is. The issue, though, is we're not quite sharp up in here, and you're at 25 seconds at 3.5. So that's suggesting me that the focus is off, because 25 seconds at 3.5 at, let's see, what lens were we using? 18 millimeter. That should be pretty sharp. You might want to try, I would try using the 400 rule, which maybe Matt can give us a link to that on our websites and one of our blogs. But that will help. And actually, you know what, Matt, that still may be a part of that very first exposure one that we already put the link to, which is going to match the proper exposure length of time for the focal length and the camera that you're using, so your stars can be sharp via the exposure. But then we also have to get it sharp via the focus as well. And I think that's what you missed here, because the person is not focused here and the stars aren't focused either. This horizon is not sharp, nor is the foreground. So it looks like the focus is way off, somewhere either really close to the camera or way past infinity. So that would be the part I would correct. The other thing is the inclusion of this lit foreground. this looks like maybe a car light or somebody else's flashlight coming in here. But if this was all solid black, then this would become so much more powerful. So the brightness here and the brightness here are really overpowering the more subtle beam. So the best thing to do is, of course, have all those lights turned off while you're making that exposure. If you can't do that, you could just take a brush and really just make all this super dark. I'm not even sure that's allowing us to get it as dark as we would want. Yeah, it's really not. But you can see as we start to downplay this, that immediately your eye goes much more to the beam. So let's bring down our highlights and our whites and everything else. Okay, there we go. Now we've completely removed it. And now when we look at that before and after, we're seeing how much that light affects the actual beam. And so we want to make that the biggest part of our photograph, the most visible part. And then likewise, you could do other things too to help keep your focus on the beam and the stars themselves by going into your healing tool and just suddenly getting rid of a couple of these little dots here. And what that will do is, again, keep your eye right where it needs to be. So let's see if we can just get that one out too. And there you go. So once again, before with all the lights distracting us, and then removing all of the lights. And then it's really all about the night sky. Get that image sharp and you are on your way. All right, back to you, Matthew.
Here I come. All right. Sandra. Are you ready, Sandra?
Yep. How you doing?
Great. How you doing?
Pretty good.
What we're looking at? Where is this?
We're not.
I don't know. I don't see a picture.
Or we're not seeing your screen, bud. We're just.
Oh, you're seeing the wrong screen. So tell me, what do you see? No, I'm just kidding. I'm so funny. No, I'm not. Okay, here we go. So what are we seeing?
So this is US 93 and State Route 71, which is in between Phoenix and Interstate 40, like you're going to Vegas. So everybody who drives from Phoenix to Vegas passes by this old gas station.
Ah.
I've been wanting to photograph it for years, so I went out the first weekend of the month and I did this picture.
Aha. I remember you stopped in on one of our streams at a gas station. Was it on that trip?
No.
Okay. This is cool. Beautiful sharpness, nice clean file. Everything from front to back is nice and sharp. Got a little bit of a schmutz on your sensor there. That's easy to clean.
Yeah.
Got a tiny bit of long exposure noise here.
Yeah, it's warm. A little warm.
This is a stack.
Yeah.
Okay. It's funny. I had to zoom in to see the gaps there. Nice clean. I love the choice of light painting off to the side. I think we can dim up this edge a little bit because it's drawing a little bit of attention there. Yeah, I think that this front edge here is a little bit bright.
Okay.
And I know this is a highway back there.
Yep. Oh, you know what? I submitted the wrong picture. I was supposed to do the one with the cactus, but that's okay.
You did a great job, though. I like this image. So, do you have a way to mask these out?
I can mask most of them out. Yeah, because it was pretty busy.
Okay. I'm just curious. I'm not against them, but I do find them to draw my attention away from this really delicately lit and worth looking at old decrepit station. So that would be my suggestion, is to do that, is try and reduce the attention on them.
Okay.
And just for the sake of argument, I'm going to do that and say, oh, look at that. They're gone, right?
Yeah. And this was shot on my 6D. So this is my older. This was not my 5D Mark IV. This was my 6D.
Okay. Cool. And I'm just going to rough it up here because I'm curious. Like, what would it look like without them? Yeah, without that competition, it becomes a different photograph.
Okay.
You agree?
I agree, definitely.
This is my favorite part right here. I love this. Has got to be a planet rising. I love
and
this.
the glow's from Phoenix, by the way.
Phoenix.
Yeah, I'm probably about 2.5 hours north of Phoenix, but that's Phoenix.
Gotcha. Yeah, Phoenix does have a lot of uplight, doesn't it? This is otherwise very delicious. It feels a little tippy. I think most of this, there's not a lot else to talk about in a way of just minor things to clean up out of this that I really love. I am curious. I haven't done this in a while. Oh yeah, look at that. This is like a stunning black and white.
Definitely.
Stunning. Absolutely stunning. Yeah. And I would just play with some of the midtones or play with some of the filters on this to see like what would you want to play with. There we go. To make it sparkle, right? There's some other things in here that I think would just I missed Tim's least favorite color, aqua. Yeah. It's beautiful in both ways, but I think with its decay, I think the black and white is truly honoring it. So
yeah, definitely. I think I like that better.
Dope.
That's something coming from you, Sandra, that you like the black and white rather than color. That's awesome.
There are a few things I do like in black and white. Give me credit.
Awesome. Wow. Great work. I would love to, when you're done with this, I'd like to see the final, because I think it's a really beautiful image.
Okay.
Back to you, Tim.
Okay. So let's see. Where were we here? That was Sandra. Okay. So this is Julianne again. And, oh, that's cool. Huh. Oh, that's really nicely done. Julianne, I like this quite a bit. Okay. So what do I like about it? Well, number one, I think the composition is really nice, having the tall tree in the center and then a smaller tree and then another tree right here, or a tree-like thing right here. The fact that this person is illuminating the rock helps them stand out, so they're not a silhouette against them. Love that. We are shooting f4 at really fast exposure, 10 seconds at ISO 800. Stars are sharp. Interesting that you're getting some movement even at 10 seconds though. Oh, it's a 34 millimeter, no wonder. Okay. So all of that is good. Clearly this is so about the foreground that the stars are just kind of an accent. So some people would say, oh, they're not perfect star points. And I say, who cares? This is really what the photograph is about in this case. So suggestions for improvement, Julianne. I think once again, I'd crop a little bit coming up from the bottom. There's a bit of vacancy here. I think that's not totally necessary to show. So let's go tap our L for lights out so we can view our image unimpeded here, maybe somewhere, just maybe right in there. Okay, now I think what I would do is grab a little bit of a gradient and darken the bottom down somewhat. Not that much, but double clicking effect resets. And I would start by bringing my highlights down, then go to the exposure just a little bit. So it's a little bit more of a subtle drop off there. Can we go one more without? Yeah, we can go there without ruining it. So it's a little bit darker in the bottom here and coming up in. Now, overall, I feel the exposure is a little bright. It looks like you're probably photographing under heavy moonlight. And so I might take the exposure down a little bit and have it feel more like a nighttime photograph. Now, if you want that sort of crisp pop to the rest of the images, now that we've brought this down, we'll go ahead and add just a little bit more of the whites. And that'll start popping the texture out in the rocks and the things like that. We don't want to go too far because we don't want to overpower the scene with the texture in this rock. As a matter of fact, I would say that even you could go in with a local adjustment brush and bring those highlights down a little bit in that rock. We want them bright. Let's see, is my paint my mouse? Yep, that's good. So painting those highlights down a little bit there, I think is going to make it feel not quite so bright. And I do want it brighter, but not as bright as it was. So probably, yeah, I would say somewhere in there is looking good. So now we've overall darkened down the image a little bit. This is still the highlight. And let's see over our overall adjustments. Exposure, I don't think we're going to take our exposure down a little bit more. If you want that nighttime feel. And then, yeah, and then bring up our highlights just a little bit. Somewhere in there. It's starting to feel a little bit more like night to me. And again, this whites is crucial. This whites is crucial because it's going to add that snap and the pop back into these rocks, which is where you started. But overall, what we've done is made it feel just a little bit more like nighttime, I think, and still kept everything in there that you wanted. I think you did a really good job, Julianne. I think you did even a really good job doing your adjustments in Lightroom. I would say just overall, all I did was really just kind of make it a little bit darker. So yeah, you like it darker. Good. I'm glad. Cool. All right, Matt. Back to you.
All right. All right, Kathy.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
This is very clean, very crisp. I love the shadow control that you had, the proper exposure for the shadows in here. And we'll see what we can do with the highlights. But I really like that you nailed the exposure and the focus. I really appreciate that. It's funny. The one star that is really standing out here is just bothering me. So we could do one of two things. We can make it go away. Wait. Or we can relocate it. Right? Oh, you belong over there, right? So I'm kidding. I would never do anything like that. Huh? Yeah. I don't know. That one was just like, it was just bothering me. I love the pastel-y colors. I don't like these orange lights underneath, but boy, they do make a different strata of color going on here. And I'm starting to appreciate that a lot. So let's see. You stuck with camera standard. I'm going to look at the different profiles to see if any of them, landscape did make it pop a little bit better. Portrait, I didn't expect to. Standard. Vivid. No, Vivid's too crunchy. I think I like landscape. And then I'm going to sort of play with, you already did play with the highlights. Let's see where it started. Okay. Let's start with the whites just to see how much we can recover. And look at that. And I'm going to do something I think that's contrary to what Tim would suggest. Oh, what's going on? Why does it turn red? That's nice. Yeah. I think you're on the right track with just the highlights there. And then we can bring the whites back up a little bit just to get that contrast back. I like that. And then you were good to bring the shadows down. I mean, the blacks down. I still want to see the shadow come up a little bit more. And let's see if I did anything to improve your image. It was already so nice. But there, the highlights are even more controlled. And I love this. I love the people up on that deck. And this light has been bothering me the whole time. Like my eye keeps zip, zip, zip coming over to it. So I was going to crop them out, but I love those people silhouetted up there. So I'm just going to try something dangerous and see if I can make that look not bright. And I definitely made it look not right. But look, it's just a mystery, right? That architect is crazy. In Photoshop, you can do that better. Wow. And now, just a little bit cooler, maybe? Just a tiny bit cooler? Yeah. Yeah. Feeling good. Now I have a question. Like, I don't think that the clarity that you added, there's about 30 points of clarity, is helping. So I'm going to pull it off for a second to see if this gets softer. And I get where you want to go with that. I do. Let's see if it really matters to have those things get crunchy. I might go with a little bit of dehaze instead and a little bit of texture. I prefer that. And Tim, of course, you would cook differently than I would, but
I like that effect. I like what you've done there.
Yeah, so this is where it started out. And now we've recovered so much of the interior detail in here that we're starting to feel like voyeurs. Was that your intention, Kathy? Were you trying to peep? Don't answer that.
No, I was just really struck by the blue twilight, right? It was totally blue hour. And then the warmth of the lights in the building. This was in Florida last year. And, you know, it was just a perfect twilight blue. You got to shoot that, man.
I completely agree. Completely agree. Let's make it bluer. Let's fake this out, right? Make it even bluer, and then pull the saturation down just a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. And then see if we can pull those whites back up in the sky to make those stars pop a little. And that is a crazy gradient for me to drop there. I mean, I might as well do it to the whole picture at this point, right?
Matt, how about going into HSL and just taking that blue and changing its hue and saturation so that you don't put the gradient across the building?
Boring. Okay, fine.
I know. Fine. It's a snore.
Snore. So saturation, aqua up. That's what Tim always says. Bring your aqua up.
Not.
I'm teasing. Yeah. Oh boy. Now it's blue hour. Now it's blowing blue. That's just okay. Wow. I can have too much fun with this. Just gonna peek at it for a second. Yeah. Nice. Before, after. Well done, Kathy. Nice moment.
Thank you. I appreciate the taking the clarity off of it, because it really allows you to see the railings on those balconies in front of the bright windows.
Yeah.
It reduces the overall contrast, right? So I'm prone to always adding clarity. And that was because it was before the days of my using dehaze and texture. So
yeah. Well, we have a special hacked version of Photoshop where clarity doesn't exist. We can provide it to you if you want.
No, it's okay. I can restrain myself.
All right. Back to you, Tim.
All right. And let's see what we've got here. And then who do we have here? All right, Sue. 6,400, 15 seconds, F4. You know where I'm going, right? What am I looking for?
Looking for, the
sharpness. Yeah. It looks like they're not quite there.
Yeah.
But all your settings are right. I mean, you've got, F4, 15 seconds for a 24 millimeter lens. That's great. 6,400. You're right where you need to be. It looks to me, and look at that. Even the distant silhouette is not quite sharp.
Right.
So tell me, do you recall how you focused this?
I think I focused down with the flashlight and live view a little farther out from where I was standing.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, are you using a Nikon or a Canon? Canon. Okay, well, Canon's got that pretty good, the live view on Canon is pretty awesome. And I would recommend, pointing up at the, like at the distant horizon there, or way up into the sky and finding a, like a planet or something, the
Right.
brightest star, and then magnifying on your live view. And
Okay.
then really trying to focus it in. And what you'll see is the circle will, when the circle gets the star will look like a circle, but when it gets to its smallest, that'll be when it's sharp. And so what you do is you rock it back and forth, and the circle will get bigger, and then it'll, and then it'll go in the other direction. And when it gets to its smallest point, that's going to be the sharpest. And then what I do, especially in an image like this, where, it's only 15 seconds, take a picture and then immediately zoom, immediately review the photograph on the back of your camera and magnify to, 100% or 1:1, and check for that critical focus to see if it's sharp. And
Yes.
I've had times, because some of the cameras that I've had have not had good live view functions. And so, if I've forgotten to mark the lens, or if I was using a new lens that I've never marked or something, I would literally start at infinity, manually focus at infinity, take a picture, zoom in and go, no, it doesn't look good. Then barely touch the lens in one direction. Shoot, no, it's still not good. Okay. Again, touch the lens, keep going in that direction, and you'll watch the stars get more and more out of focus. If they're getting more and more out of focus, you go in the other direction from the infinity. Because as you know, most of the lenses, when you put them dead on infinity, unless you're shooting an IRIX lens, will not be sharp. And so, I've shot 10 or 15 images just dialing in the sharpness, which you can do, when you're working with a 15-second exposure. But I think the key here is really ensuring that you check, review the image after it's been taken, to get a really good idea, because, focusing on those stars can be really, really hard.
Yes.
And so I think spending a little bit more time doing that after the fact, Sue, then you'll know when you leave the field that, yep, absolutely, I got that.
Yep,
I got that sharp. Yep. Because
Okay.
you got some great color in here and a cool silhouette. And so we want to ensure that when we go home, we know we're sharp.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, of course, once you do get it sharp on a night like this, you'll take some gaffer's tape, right? And then tape that lens down so
Right.
you don't bump it out of focus. And of course, for all you listening out there, if you don't want to deal with these problems, using an IRIX lens has got a perfect infinity indent, and it's right on the mark. And you can put it at that indent at infinity and then actually lock the lens down. You don't need any tape. And there it is. It's locked at infinity and it's not going anywhere for the whole night. And then the whole focus problem becomes not a problem at all, becomes a non-issue. And you can just start worrying about having fun and composing and playing with the night.
Okay.
All right, Matt, back to you, buddy.
I am sharing. Sandra, you did submit this image.
Oh, no, I had another image of the gas station with a cactus. Pulled out a little bit. I grabbed the wrong one.
Okay. Well, I still liked that image.
Yeah, it's what happens when you're in the middle of trying to get the images out while answering 911 calls. So,
thank you for what you do.
Oh, you're
appreciate it. So, tell me what you're thinking about for this one. Is there something in particular you wanted me to focus on?
Yeah, the wires. So I have two. I already put a little bit where I took it a little bit further back. I put that one on Instagram like 2 weeks ago. And then I went back the following week and I redid this, but I went from like underneath, like more of an underneath the sign and up on it.
Right.
And I found that just from May 1st to May 8th, the traffic on the road from coming from Vegas was ridiculous. And Vegas wasn't even open.
Right.
But it's still electrical wire there. It's the wires.
Yeah. I think more on what Tim was talking about before is chunkifying this, doing it in sections where you have no stars would be an easy way to start this. And then you can work on, doing in between the stars first and then work on these separately like this.
Okay.
If you were to do it in Lightroom, you may find more elegant tools to solve this problem within Photoshop.
Okay.
So if we did it this way, where you have a relatively starless section, then you could do this. And it kind of works, but you might want to clean it up in some areas where it doesn't quite work. That makes sense?
Yeah,
And
but then
since
in
this
the
is
other,
a stack,
right.
I would recommend fixing this in each of the stacks instead of the flattened one.
Okay.
Because then you won't have to deal with as many stars or interrupting star trails. Because yeah, it might be a little bit easier that way. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, because if not, I was torn between leaving it in because it's, you know, the industrial part of it,
Right.
or the man-made part of it.
Yeah. I think the one that I eliminated was a good one to get rid of. This one is kind of weird. It looks kind of like a star trail, but it's not soft like the star trails are, which I'm not against, by the way. Like, but it's weird that it just disappears at the top here. Like, I guess that's the edge of the frame. I got low contrast. Oh yeah, it is the edge of the frame. Cool. Okay. Yeah, it's almost like it has its own, because of the braid and the wire, it's almost like it has its own Morse code effect like the star trails do. Huh. I would say it's worth the effort to get rid of it.
Okay.
But that's my opinion. I think it would be a stronger image without this area being deadlocked out here.
Okay.
Because it's like our eyes are kind of trapped in here, despite this little break that tells you to find something to escape. I still think that would be stronger without it. Are those bullet holes?
No, bird holes, bird nest, cactus wrens.
Bird's nest. Oh, it's so cool. I got to get out there. This is great. This is great. I love it. Another thing you might consider is, bringing it in a little, just to give a little bit of air on that one, right? And then you'll have less effects.
Do it as a square, please. Can you do it as a square?
Me? A square?
Yeah, see what a square
I love
looks
squares. Like. I love squares. Oh, I'm going to miss the bottom of the cactus.
Oh, there was a fence down there, so I couldn't get the bottom of the cactus.
That's it. Yeah, it's pretty tight as a square, too.
Yeah.
Then you got to get rid of this satellite here. It's this, you know what? It fills the frame very nicely as a square.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. All right. Well, that is the end of it all. Oh no. That's it, Tim.
No. Well,
what are we going to do?
I don't know.
Well, can we ask everybody to turn their screens on and bring their cats in the room?
Yeah, he decided, oh, look at that little cutie Kathy.
Hey, Matt, I think you have to turn it on. It says you have to turn it on.
I have to turn it on?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Did I block you or something?
You did.
Ask to start video. You know what? There's a whole bunch of things happening with Zoom because of the griefers.
There we go. Okay, how about dogs? Does dogs count?
All furry friends. I can't. All my 4 cats are upstairs. I can't reach them right now. They're too far above me.
And here's the other one.
Oh, look at that precious.
Right.
Is that a dog or a cat? It's awful small.
It's a dog.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying my cat's about that big.
Oh, my cat's actually bigger.
How big is your cat, Tim?
400 pounds. Oh.
We have one like that.
He's huge. He's huge.
My cat looks almost like that.
Hey, Linnell, good to see you.
Hey, Tim. Good to see you. Hey, Matt.
Hi. Pleasure to meet you for the first time.
My other little picture looks better.
It's an awful cute picture you had there.
Yeah, I keep wondering what happened.
Yeah, don't we all? Oh, Lord. Well, thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you. This was awesome again.
Thank you.
Good. You're so very welcome. Our pleasure to do so. Although I think, Matt, we're moving this to once a month.
Yeah, it looks like the image review is probably going to go down to once a month right now. So we have some things cooking, and we need that every minute that we have to go cook those things. So,
So you're doing one next week and then starting once a month, or?
We're not bargaining here, Sandra. This is not a negotiation.
It's because I have
That was
next
a good
Thursday.
try.
It's because I have next Thursday off. I normally should be at work right now.
Ah.
Yeah.
It'll be a surprise.
Well,
How's
it's nice
that?
to have you here rather than from the call center. That's for sure, Sandra.
Oh yeah, and now I can't because I'm done training with that trainee, and I actually have to work now.
Oh,
It's horrible.
Bummer.
Yeah.
well, we do appreciate all of you, and we'll definitely communicate about what's going to come in the future. You know, it's all for the good stuff that's coming. So we'll keep you guys in the loop. We do appreciate it. So
Yeah. We appreciate you guys too.
No, thank you, Sue.
Very
Oh, I
helpful.
miss seeing you guys.
Yeah.
soon, we hope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Lance said that Maine is a go, so or Maine is most likely a go. So
Well, yeah. Well, we're I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we're still on for Tuesday for blog chat. And Gabe has some exciting guests coming up for the Instagram live. So
Yeah, no kidding.
stay tuned for that. Yeah. In the meantime, we appreciate you guys, and we can't wait to see you in person again. And yeah, so and we have I guess we have some friends on YouTube also. So
Thanks for joining us, everybody out there.
have a wonderful
you.
holiday
Hope you enjoyed
weekend.
it. Okay, yeah, that's right. The holiday weekend.
Yeah.
Enjoy
is.
that extra day at home. Hey,
Right.
off from work.
I'm gonna go out and shoot somebody.
There, something, Linnell, something.
Photograph. Photograph.
All right, everybody, take care. We'll see you next time.
you.
Thank you.
Peace.
yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.